seated. We have the app, so please feel free to send questions, and I'll ask our esteemed panel in the half an hour that we have. If you could put the timer on so I make sure we run to time, that would be great. So my name's Paul Begust. I'm the RICS Property Standards Director, and I have a responsibility for FM and corporate real estate within within the RICS. So thanks. No idea. Okay. A couple of stats we were talking about over lunch. So the average age of an IFMA member is 51. The RICS has more members over the age of 70 working in facilities management than we do under the age of 30 working in facilities management. So as a profession, we've got some challenges, and we're here to really talk about the opportunity that technology might present to us to meet those challenges. Conscious you're not really here to listen to me, you're listen to the panel. So I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves, if that's okay. First person I will go to on my left, if you would like to introduce yourself, and then we'll ask some questions.
So my name is Vincent Lenoble. I'm the founder and CEO of Measurement, and we collect data on the actual use of workplaces.
My name is Harm van der Boogaert. I'm here on behalf of Facility Management Netherlands, a member of the expert group on technology. And in my daily work, I work for the Dutch government facility management organization.
Hi everybody, my name is Paul Cox. I work in the Ministry of Justice in the UK. I do quite a lot of work in terms of workplace, whether it's occupancy measuring or the Commuter Hub initiative, which was successful in winning the Partners in Innovation Award last year.
Great, thanks. And today we can talk a little bit about the technologies that are available and how they're being used. We're also going to talk about the impact technology may have on our profession. And Chris Moriarty gave a great presentation earlier, I thought, very incredible insight. And he left us with the thought that he said facilities management is woeful at technology. Now, we may or may not disagree with that, and let's ask the panel, what do you think? Is that true? Do you think we are woeful at technology?
I think he's absolutely right, yeah. I think we're very good at providing support and facilities for the end users, and I think that's very important. But we're terrible at adopting new technology and things like that, definitely.
Yeah, I think we're in the late adapters if you got the marketing segments. Technology ends up late, we're most focusing on people interactions.
I think you see some pockets of best practice, but generally, yes, it is fairly woeful.
So on that inspiring note, let's try and let's lift the mood a little. So in terms of how the session is, how is technology shaping the future of FM? And Paul, you've done a lot of work in terms of using technology in your environment. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the things you've done, and then we'll talk about that?
Sure. I mentioned at the start about the Commuter Hubs initiative. So we have an issue within government that a lot of our space is within the centre of London, which is both very expensive and involves civil servants having long journeys to get to it. So we've gradually reduced the amount of space that we've got in central London. What I did was set up the ability for staff to book into offices closer to where they live using an app, and then they get the advantages of working in an office. So you can interact with other humans, you get the technology that you would expect in an office. You're not falling over the cat, or we've got children crying in the background, and that's worked really well for us. That's balanced in our headquarters office of measuring exactly how the space is used, different setting types, how people are using those, and then you can do interventions in terms of helping people change the way that they work. So we're using more and more technology, and we've now got 4,000 sensors in our offices measuring exactly how the building is being used.
And Vincent, you were telling me about some of the work you've been doing. Do you want to share with us some of the applications of technology that you've been leading on?
Sure. So the things that Paul is doing in his office is, of course, gathering data on occupancy and utilization of the facilities. And I believe that's very good. If you look at it from a maturity point of view, it's all about being more efficient and more effective, and using this data to create insights and make better decisions on changing the workplace. But again, as I said before, it's all about what is the added value for the end user, and we have to begin with that in the end of mind, because if we know why we are doing it, for instance, introducing flexible working, or working from home, and creating an app to show where there's vacant seats in a building. I think that's all very good, and we can use technology to do so, but it doesn't create the experience that we would like to have in these offices. And I believe we as an industry know best how to support and facilitate workers, office workers, and employees. And we should create an environment that people feel at home, so they can be happy, healthy workers, and not so much search for an empty spot in their office, looking for colleagues through technology. So that's my look on it.
And Harm, do you think, I guess the big question is facilities management ready for this technology? Is facilities management going to deliver what these organizations are looking for, or is there a risk that that service will come from elsewhere?
I don't think we're ready yet. If I look around, we're much focused on hospitality and less seeing the abilities of technology. And I think in the end, eventually it will happen. It will overcome us. And I think it's best to jump aboard and influence the direction where it will go. If we do not, I think other parties like real estate of IT will jump into the gaps. And I think it's mainly FM, we are already accustomed to bundling all the different aspects, all different branches within one building. So we're in the middle between IT and real estate. So there's a huge opportunity for us to translate all the data, all the technology, and make it to use to the people living in the buildings.
So Paul, we got a question here for the panel really, but it's sort of building on that, and I'm sure you all go to lots of conferences, it comes up a lot, technology is a disruptor, etc., etc., and I'm not sure that's how lots of people in other industries see technology. So the question is, Paul, is technology a disruptor, or should we start calling it an enabler, and what do we mean by that?
For me, it's definitely a disruptor. And I don't think that's a negative. I think it's quite positive, because actually if you think about how we've worked until probably just a couple of years ago, that 5 days a week we've always gone into the same office, logged onto the same computer, but now there's the opportunity to work in an entirely different way, where you can perhaps work from home 1 day a week, pick the kids up from school that you wouldn't otherwise have been able to do, have better work-life balance, and actually join with colleagues in different ways than physically being present together. So I think the ability of technology to disrupt how we work is a positive, and that will then therefore have an impact on FM colleagues as well.
Vincent, it's an enabler or a disruptor, or both?
It's definitely an enabler, I would say, because if we talk about disruptive technology, that's just going to happen. It's not a question of whether or not to implement it in your facilities department or in your offices. It's just going to happen. It's going to influence everything and everyone. But we, as a facility management professional, should use this technology to add value to the end user, and hop on the bandwagon for that matter. So it's definitely an enabler to create faster communication, community feeling through all these new channels that we have. We can use all these technologies to make processes more efficient and effective, have more time to make the experience of the workplace even better. So I would definitely say an enabler.
Okay. I know people like to hear examples and they like to hear the technology that's being used. What are you seeing in terms of effective technology in your role?
I think technology will help us a big deal in our offices. We're already seeing this in our homes. We've got this Google Home is telling me every morning what the weather is like, what my commuting time will be, what's the latest news. And that's a great start. If you've got a Tesla, it also knows where you're going. It's linked with your agenda. So it's a term called ambient computing I heard lately. Well, the computers are all around you, knowing what your intentions are, and that will enter our offices. I think, for example, my coffee machine, if I walk up to my coffee machine, it will already know that I drink my black coffee. So I just have to push yes or change it if I want. So our environment will help us getting a better experience, a better user experience. That's what I just heard from the girl from Delft. That's what we're aiming for.
And the relationship with data, I think we touched on already, but Vincent, talk us through how you're using technology and what's the role of the data analyst in the future, and how we use technology to make decisions and organizations.
Right. Well, I really believe in actually what David was just saying with his introduction, that it's a maturity steps. So we first have to become aware of the opportunities, and then we can take the next step and see the value in it, and see if it's worth it. So in terms of data, each step gives you different data sets, and these data sets can be used to make decisions on the next steps to take. Yeah, I believe it's still small steps that we need to take, but we need to take them much faster than we currently do. It is inevitable. Change is happening, and if we don't do it as a branch, someone else will do it.
I agree. And Paul, in terms of you would have captured a lot of data in the work that you did. How did you pitch that internally in your organisation? How have you used that data, and what's the role of the data analyst in your organisation? Who does that?
We do have data analysts within the Ministry of Justice that process the raw data into understandable reports for end users. But we had an interesting discussion fairly recently that we wanted a kind of a very high level dashboard for senior managers, and we wanted to somehow score what a good building looks like. And we never reached a conclusion on that because we're not sure what a good building is. Because as I always say about the sensors, that you can never be right, because if the occupancy is low, then you need to put more people in. And if the occupancy is high, then people need to work remotely more. So actually defining what a good building looks like, I think, is a bit of a challenge for us at the moment. But we just use the data as one of the indicators, really, when we go to a business unit. The data is what it is. This number of people sat down as a maximum at any one point in time, but bringing in any of the business requirements, anything that was going on in the environment at that point in time, we can do things like consider the type of furniture that's provided. So using the analyst as an example, we have a variety of settings. Analysts need a desk with 2 monitors so that they can do the data analyst. If you look at the occupancy data for their touchdown space, they don't use it. So when you're designing space for analysts, you need to kind of bear that in mind. Other business units, you may get something similar, but you can work with them to change how they work, because almost as soon as you put a range of settings into a space, people will then start to change how they work. So you may find that you've provided the wrong furniture, and then you can perhaps change that around in the future based on what the reports are telling you.
So do you share the data to the employees as well?
We share the data. We've got a team of people called Smarter Working, and each business unit has a Smarter Working champion. So Smarter Working goes to the champion and has a conversation with them.
Excellent.
In terms of, just to change the emphasis a little bit, when you all came into the profession, I'm not sure. I think I think, Harm, you describe yourself as somebody who's an intentional FM, is that right?
Yeah.
One of the few I know who actually intended to join the profession. That's great. I mean, what's your sense of the journey that this profession is on at the moment, and where we need to get to, and how we get there to meet the needs of the technology? What are the universities? What are the academics? What are the professional organisations need to do to make sure that we have professionals who are equipped?
When I'm talking to colleagues, I'm talking about technology and IT coming in our field. I find myself as a one-eyed being king. There's lots of technology and possibilities opening up, but very few people ever try to follow something like Python programming. What the hell is it? What is artificial intelligence? What can I do with Google Analytics? How can I look at a building like that? Very few people that I speak to on the floor are seeing the opportunities that are there. So I think academics, schooling should be more focusing on what is IT, how does infrastructure work, what is the basics of programming. You don't have to be a programmer. What is data analytics? You see in HR, you see functions like HR analytics. I think that somewhere between now and 5 years we got something like FM analytics. I think you already got one, and that will enter our field. That's a new way of thinking and looking at your branch, and we're lacking that by now.
What do you think, Vincent?
I think you're right. Facility management analytics, I think that would be a great job, and I believe that some of the universities are already applying that knowledge and sharing that with students to come, and I believe that everyone is much more into data analytics, whether it's the quantified self and looking through our Fitbits or Apple Watches on how we do our running, but that can be in health as well, for stress at the office. For instance, technology would give us the opportunity to show who we communicate with inside an office. If you Google Office 365 My Analytics, then you'll find very interesting movies on what Microsoft is doing in order to see the sociologics behind how we use an office suite. So everyone is gonna have these numbers to make decisions on. So definitely, yeah.
The tooling is there.
The tooling is here. Oh yeah.
How can we put it to value for our customers?
Yeah.
So we started by saying FM isn't good at technology, and I wonder, should we talk about BIM, for example? What are the lessons that we've learned from BIM in terms of how this profession needs to perhaps be more agile or embracing of technology? Is there anything you think we can learn from that?
Well, I think that Simon Ashford said it before today, that it's not as bad as we think. There's actually a lot of BIM implementation going on, and it's just a matter of a few more years, and we'll have this implemented everywhere. It's like going back from the huge paintings to cut, and now it's going to be BIM. I do think that if we want to remain relevant, that we need to speed up. We just need to get our shit together and get some work done. And if you don't have the capacity yourself, you should partner up. There's so many companies nowadays that have this beautiful technology that we can all use and implement very easily, and we just need to step up.
Paul, what's your learnings from BIM? I know you've done a bit of work around it.
It's not an area that I'm particularly an expert in, but I've certainly seen huge advantages come forward for things like building prisons, and the massive savings have come across from that. I think from my experience, mostly in the office estate, I think the soft landings are really the critical thing, making sure that there's a clear handover to FM colleagues once the project completes. That's probably a bit of an area of weakness at the moment, certainly in my experience.
Is there a sense that FM is bit of a crossroads here, and technology is part of that. I'll explain. We did a piece of work at RICS that said up to 88% of RICS professional roles, and that's a wide set of skills, I appreciate, but are at risk from the use of technology in the future. So their roles will have to adapt, or they will disappear. And we also did a piece of very big FM focused research and asked a lot of FM what the challenges were in their role, and technology was a very low 6th or 7th on the list. The top list was all about operational cost. So is there a risk that FM could become so focused on the commoditized service operational drive for cost that it will miss the opportunity for technology, and therefore it will become a profession that only sits in that space? Is that a real risk that you see?
I think that's a good question for the audience as well. So get your questions in or remarks through the app. But it could be a threat. It could be a downfall, definitely. Yeah.
What do you think, Han?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of FM businesses, if you see the prediction, well, artificial intelligence will in the future shape jobs. A lot of the repetitive standardized work will be automated, and that's a large part of FM now sometimes. So that part will go, and then you have to be able to switch and to make sure that what can you do with the data, how can you adapt your technology and make a better service. So yeah, that's a big change and threat, but also opportunities.
Yeah.
Cool. It's maybe like Christian Huber said yesterday. We need more human sensors to get in the workforce.
I think in pretty much any profession, the impact of things like machine learning and artificial intelligence will be massive. But our experience probably over the last 20 years is that technology has changed jobs throughout the world, but actually there are more jobs that come to replace those jobs, but just in a slightly different sector. So I think it's probably in terms of reskilling, and clearly technology is going to be a key part of that. But I think we need to remember in all of this that our role in helping our customers who are in our buildings isn't just presenting them with a set of data. It's actually listening to them and taking on board their feedback and the human skills as well. It's not just analytics.
So what the customers want then, Harm, let's start with you in terms of, because you talk about the need for us to understand our customer and deliver the solutions they need. What is it that they're looking for?
I think we just heard now that too often we see that facility management telling the customers this is what you want, and I think they want a building that adapts to their needs. Like my example with the coffee machine, it knows what I want. It wants to adapt. If I go to a workplace, it should change its lighting and temperature to what I need for my work right now. I think that's why your customer, that's why you make your happy customers.
Vincent, you've done a lot of work here, so
yeah, I would always hope that it's a sense of belonging and development. That's what people will search for, and we mustn't forget that a building is one of the only physical things we have to create a clubhouse, so to speak, to have people feel at home at work and then have this sense of belonging. And of course, it needs to be an environment where you can develop yourself as well. So you want to be inspired, you want to learn, you want to talk to colleagues, you want to do these projects, maybe agile projects, and integrate new technology in your line of business. So I hope that that's what we're looking for from that point of view.
So what does the future look like in terms of David talked there about trends, and sometimes there's a criticism of the real estate industry. It rushes to a trend and everyone talks about the Google slide or put in 1 million sensors and your problems are all solved. what are the, what does the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years look like from your perspective? I know that's a difficult question to answer, but what's coming down the track that we need to be getting ready for?
Make it my glass ball.
Yeah, go for it.
Question, yeah. But I think the data part, there's much more data, and how can we deal with it, make it to value, and make better services, better customer satisfaction. I think that's a big one. And then we'll see the sensor, the IoT devices coming into your office. And we all know these hype words, lots of them going around. The big challenge will be how can we get all these techniques working together. Can we have some kind of backbone infrastructure connecting all these various services and making it to value? And that will be a hard thing to do. And that if you can do that as a FM industry or real estate industry, I think that you're having a big bonus.
Paul, what's your experience?
So I think that as we move towards the future, it would be good if people can kind of work the way that they want to work. So there's been a bit of a tendency in the past to just en masse move to open plan working, and that suits extroverts but doesn't suit introverts. Perhaps we can find ways that different personality types can work effectively. We can look at how we deal with disabilities. So is the sink that's installed in the office able to respond to a wheelchair user so that they can access it? Are there hearing loops in meeting rooms? And actually enabling everybody that works in the workplace to do their best.
I get scared shitless if I see Amazon's Jeff Bezos walking next to this friendly Boston Dynamics dog named Spot, and see the robots running through the forest doing somersaults even. Or for that matter, the Cambridge Analytics and their 50 million Facebook accounts deep dive that they've done. But I also see a lot of very nice technology and integrations possible. Coming here to Sofia, I'm very happy with my booking app on my phone, with my online check-in for my flight, with Google Maps showing me where to walk and where not to walk. So there's a lot of technology that we can adapt already, and that's making life very easy and beautiful, but there's also a lot of threats. I think we still need to make a lot of mistakes, fail hard and often, and learn from it, and share that with each other, and then progress from there. It's an evolution.
Which leads in nicely. We've got a couple of minutes left, so Harm and Paul. Harm, start with you. We've got a room full of experts, we've got a room full of industry leaders, a room full of industry ambassadors. So what do we need to do as an industry, as a profession today? What do we want to walk away from this conference and do when we go back to our organisations? What's your call to action for us?
Get more familiar with IT, the IT challenges, the opportunities technology brings, and make sure you're ready. Don't hide, don't run, don't fear it, but make sure that you're grasping the opportunities. There's loads of them.
And Paul, what's your ambition?
Very, very similar, really. Think about the workplaces that you represent and how the new technologies can be enabled within them.
Great. So I think we're nearly at the end of the session. So thank you. Great session. I kind of what I wanted us to get across is my feeling is the profession is at a crossroads for many reasons, and Chris Moriarty earlier set out, as in a great way, some of the challenges for a profession that for 30 years has continued to sort of fail to explain what it does, and clearly we need to be doing that a lot better. Technology is an enabler of that conversation, and it really does provide us with the opportunity to position facilities management as a great business enabler for delivering the value that we want to talk about rather than the commoditized cost that everyone gets a bit bogged down in. So thank you very much to the panel. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Harm. I think we are within 1 minute, so hopefully that gives you enough time to arrange the setup. But please thank the panel and thank you for your time.
Thank you.